So I watched this movie. I will admit that I did know that Ezra Miller was going to be in this, though I'm pretty sure, I haven't checked, that I said um, we need to talk about Kevin would be the last movie I reviewed with Ezra Miller in it because of the stuff they've done. But um, this movie had a big impact on a lot of people. I've been wanting to watch it for a few years now. I've seen a few edits on TikTok that piqued my interest. And the movie isn't directly made about Ezra, it's more about Charlie. It focuses more on his character. Sure, Ezra does have um, somewhat of a big role, but they are not the main character. So, for instance, um, if it was a Brad Pitt movie like Fight Club, I would not watch it because he abused his kids and his wife. So I don't care how big of an impact Fight Club had on a lot of people. I'm not going to watch it because he's the main character in it. Or Jeepers Creepers. That had a big impact on a lot of the horror community. But the director is a pedophile. Ezra Miller is a pretty bad person. They attacked a woman. They supposedly, I'm not sure about this one. I never followed up on it. Because the woman one they had a video of. But there was something about them throwing a chair at someone, and then there was also maybe having kids around guns. There was a lot of stuff. They definitely aren't the worst person in Hollywood, but it's not a person that I want to keep watching their movies. So I'm not going to be watching stuff like The Flash or anything like that, or even most of their past projects. But this movie, it just had such a big impact, and it's not directly about him. Him, I mean Patrick. That I think I should, watch this movie, and I did. It it was pretty good. It sucks that Ezra's in it. They do a fine performance, but it doesn't overshadow the bad stuff they've done. So first off, I do want to say the age gap really bothered me. That is the fact that they established pretty early on that Charlie is a freshman. He's just starting high school. So what is he, 13, 14? Maybe barely 15? The people he hangs out with are seniors, which is completely fine to be friends with people that are seniors, but he becomes romantically interested in Emma Watson's character and kisses her quite a few times, and it does seem by the end of the movie that they're dating. So what is she? 17? 18? I do think that's a pretty big age gap. Even if it's 17, they're both minors, whatever, that's still a weird age gap. Could you imagine being a legal adult and dating someone that's 15? It's just weird. That's protected by the Romeo and Juliet law or whatever that bogus shit is, but it's still weird. That was something that bothered me throughout the entire movie, was the fact that, sure, crushing on Emma Watson would be fine, but him actually dating her is weird. Just the entire movie, I was like, are you kidding me? This freshman thinks he's going to get with a senior? That's not going to happen. She's way too old for him, and she'll reject his advances. Well, they don't do that. They never acknowledge the age gap at all. Not once. He also gets with one of them and maybe has sex with her. It looks like they're about to do it in one scene, but the parents come home, so it stops. But there's also a scene where he directly talks about touching her boobs, which is obviously sexual. And he says he's tired of doing it or whatever, because he doesn't like this girl. He likes Emma. But they established earlier that the reason he's with her because you accept the love that you think you deserve. There are two different uses of the F slur in the movie. One of them I do not like because I am tired of movies putting slurs in movies just to put slurs in movies. There's this random bully character that bullies Charlie in 3 scenes, 3 lines. She literally doesn't matter. But the very first scene we see her in, probably only like 2 or 3 minutes in, she calls Charlie the F slur. And then there's like another scene where I think she calls him gay. And then there's another scene where she says something rude to him, and that's it. She literally doesn't matter. So why did she get to do that exactly? It's so weird. Well, then later in the movie with Patrick, I think they did it very well. Where I didn't like how they handled the relationship though. Ezra gets with this kid Brad that's closeted, and his dad's very homophobic, and we see one scene with them kissing, and then we don't see a scene with them again because there's scenes where Brad could have at least been hanging out with Ezra or something. Um, but um, the next scene we see with them is after they've broken up, and I think they handled this pretty well, with Ezra getting mad at Brad for not defending him. Him by I mean Patrick. I'm not misgendering Ezra. And then Brad just pretends to not know him, is completely confused. And then he ends it with calling him the F slur, which I think was a good way to handle this scene. But I do think it was totally random with that random fucking bully character. I think it works this way because it shows how much Brad has, fallen after what his dad did to him. And Ezra, um, you know, it's just a powerful scene if you are someone that is a part of the community. It's easier for you to understand. But just the fact that, he was still willing to try with Brad. And when he's walking away, he calls him the worst word you can call a gay person. And he even repeats it. So him and Ezra get into a fight. And it's pretty brutal until Charlie comes in and blacks out, and they don't show the fight scene. And that gets all the friends together again. Because Charlie kissed a girl after Ezra had, I think it was Ezra, dared them to kiss the prettiest girl in the room, and he kisses his crush instead of his current girlfriend. So none of them were friends with Charlie for most of the movie until he defends Ezra. Now everything's forgiven. Which I get it. It was pretty big of him. And also showed that he cared about them to defend Ezra like that, but it was pretty weird to immediately be friends again just because he kicked some guy's ass to save your brother. Not to mention, actually, I want to go back to the age gap thing. The high schoolers were hired to do a job, and apparently they're supposed to stop after they're out of high school, is what it seems like from the movie. They don't directly say that, but that was the thing I'm getting. Or maybe it's because they're moving or whatever. I know Emma was supposed to move because of her college, but I don't think all the other characters were moving too, like Ezra and the girl that Charlie was dating. I can't remember her name. I don't think it was Candace. No, it was Mary Elizabeth. Yeah, Mary Elizabeth. I don't think they're all moving, but all of them are done with the plays or whatever. And Mary Elizabeth promises to give a good word so Charlie can join it. But the problem with the play is one of the plays is very, very sexual with sexual innuendos. There's not actual sex going on because it's a play in front of a live audience. But Charlie is also in a Speedo, and he's a freshman. And then there's also the scene earlier where Ezra is like shaking his ass and shit. You know, there's just um, a lot of shit. Um, and you know, I really don't understand why they just kind of gloss over the age gap thing, and just them being in a very sexual play was very weird. Made me very uncomfortable to watch that, knowing that these characters are supposed to be high schoolers, and here they are dancing in bras and underwear and speedos while they talk about sexual shit. It's a very weird thing for the people that hired them to do that, not the actual, movie people, but in the movie, it's very weird that people would hire high schoolers to do that. Charlie and Ezra end up kissing, but that doesn't go anywhere. I didn't think it was going to go anywhere. It just felt like an in the moment thing, but it's never mentioned again. It was a kind of emotional moment with Ezra's character, but you know, once again, doesn't really go that much anywhere. Um, I think that's about it. I don't think there's too much else I want to talk about. Just the age gap thing is a big problem. But I do think the movie was very good. And I do like the message. I do like how they handled depression and being an introvert. And a lot of the things they handled in the movie was very well. Like also how they handled the fact that Charlie kind of blacked out the sexual assault. Like he didn't fully remember it, but he did remember it. That is a thing that matters. I knew what I knew what it was before it happened. I don't remember directly when, but I think they had something that just seemed like really, suspicious on the way they worded it. But yeah, we find out that his aunt Helen molested him. And there's also this thing that I find totally random where the dad is just kind of anti whatever the girl's religion was. I don't remember what it was anymore. But he was a real dick about it. And that doesn't really go anywhere. His dad is just a dick in a few scenes. The mom also is like barely in the movie. I honestly don't understand why she's in this movie sometimes. The dad had a bigger part. And there's also this character that Emma's dating that like cheats on her. We find out near the end of the movie. He was like barely in the movie. He bailed on her during the play or whatever. The only scene actually I remember him being in was a scene where Charlie gave him like bubbles as a Christmas present. He was like, "Oh, Charlie knows me." His character was just not very important. And there's also his sister who's dating a guy that hits her in one scene. And first he tries to play the protective brother and tries to help her, and she just tells him no, and he's like, okay, and he just kind of lets it go on. It's kind of odd, but I think that's about it.